you look at certain people do not trust a chart. They need to see the underlying Excel data and make sure it's the right quality or it's broken down the right way that they think.
Right.
On the flip side, there's people who just, as soon as they see a row of numbers, their brain it zones out. They're thinking about anything but that.
Welcome to RevOps Champions, a podcast designed for revenue professionals looking to advance sales and marketing initiatives through the role of RevOps within their organizations. In each episode, we feature leaders who are leveraging technology to drive operational efficiency, revenue, and improve the customer experience. Listen in and learn how to become a better RevOps leader within your own organization. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. I am Tiffany Cavegn with the RevOps Champions podcast, and I have been thinking a lot lately about sales visibility, sales enablement. And so I wanted to bring in our VP of Ops. Welcome, Aaron. Thanks so much for being here. Just to get started, if you do me a favor and just a couple sentences about who you are, what you do here at Denamico, and then if you can think of a fun fact to share with us about you, that'd be great too.
Yeah, totally. So again, my name's Aaron Rickard. I work here at Denamico. I'm the head of ops. So I work with all of our strategic consultants. So anywhere from doing assessment of problems to implementing HubSpot to just ongoing work, we work with our team and design ways to help our clients to identify the problems that they're going through and to set a consistent growth and improvement pattern for their success over time. So I work with a team of people. We work on each of their specialties and developing those and growing those over time. So not only are our clients growing, but our employees are growing as well. And, their expertise is evolving just like the industry is all the time. A fun fact about myself is I would say I actually have somewhat of a passion for throwing darts. I got sucked into it at one point and it's stuck for the last 3 years now. And now it's a fun thing I do. So
that is fun. Now you won a tournament or entered a tournament recently. So that it's more than just going to the bar on Friday night and playing darts for you, right?
I did win a tournament. It might have been part luck, but it was first place. That was great. Yes.
Well, first time I ever played darts, I hit a hat trick and my brother about fell on the floor. And then after that, I could not hit the board ever again. So that's my experience with darts. I don't even play anymore.
I've found, if you're starting off and it's someone's first time, I'd rather have beginner's luck on my team than the other person's team. So
right.
It's good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really fun. I've also, I've worked on your team in the past. And one of the things that I really love about the methodology, and this will kind of lead us into my question for you, is I think this team and really HubSpot partner teams in general have this fantastic skill of really focusing on what's the business problem at hand here and using technology to solve that problem rather than the other way around, where technology is actually creating business problems. So I think your team does that really well, and I've been proud to be on that. But tell me, if you don't mind, what would you say in terms of sales visibility? What are the biggest problems that companies are facing right now? Yeah,
so it depends on the stage of your business. I think right now there's a lot of noise in telling people what to think as well, which is probably part of the problem, right? You've had a lot of people at your company that have a lot of feelings on how things should be done, and you're trying to meet somewhere in the middle with everyone, and it leads you to chaos. Probably in many areas, right? Nothing's perfect.
We've been there together, haven't we?
Yeah, a lot of people have. Yes. So it's one is you got to realize that that's happening and just, enjoy it, right? Like no one's perfect and you're trying to build a team together, which is part of that. I do think though, even in young and mature organizations, you're still seeing problems with clarity into the right information. Mm-hmm. When I say clarity, I mean everyone can actually understand the information. It's there and it's in a digestible and understandable format. The second part of this is the data accurate? So sometimes there's a lot of information, but is it based on someone's feeling? Is it quantifiable data? If you think it back to college, it'd be quantitative versus qualitative information. And I can give you plenty of good examples on those differences. But if you have actually good data from both humans and your systems, that's much better. So it's not just one area. I think when people hear good data, they just think, oh, is my system recording timestamps and things happen? Is it reportable? It's a blend of both human and system things. Another part of this, when we're talking about sales visibility, I think is the sales methodology, right? So as you're getting information and insights into things, your humans are interpreting what the system is saying. So do the humans understand what they should be looking for, what they should be doing, and how to interpret that information themselves? So those are, I think, the three biggest spots. I also see that there's an area of, when I talked about the first part of, does everyone see the data and is there clarity there? It also has to be clear across the organization too, right? So from finance and operations to customer service to your marketing and sales teams, speaking common language across the company is another component of that.
Sure. Well, let's dig into a couple of those things. So talk to me a little bit more, and let's just use an example of like sales forecasting, right?
Sure.
What does a good process that leads to good visibility and good data, what does that look like if you're like using sales forecasting as an example?
Sure. So good visibility in sales forecasting, I think, starts with a unified methodology across the business. Talk about sales. There's a sales process and then there's a sales methodology. Think of sales methodology as the pulse or the heartbeat of how things should operate. The process is the actual tangible things happening. In order to get a good good forecasting, you need great process. In order to have a great process, you need a good methodology or standard methodology. Mm-hmm. This is something we see with a lot of clients that are coming into HubSpot, is we're having a lot of discovery sessions, just understanding what is your sales methodology, because most companies don't have a defined sales methodology. So we spend a lot of time probably talking with anywhere from 1 to 10 teams of the company, right? It could be sales and marketing, customer service, people in different countries. There's sometimes different teams, and understanding, do you run yours differently than this team, and why is that? And we try to get them on a same methodology, right? So it's what defines an opportunity, what defines something when an opportunity is done, what qualifies an opportunity in or out, when is a customer in the certain stages of their life cycle and when aren't, when is their teams engaging with them and not. Even that same side from a marketing standpoint, you're kind of going through this discovery process. The nice thing about the methodology is it's just a baseline sales process handled as well. But as your business evolves, you're going to run into scenarios where you have to break the process. Depending on your industry, you're going to see that working differently. And instead of having to rethink your entire sales process every time one of these things happens, you have a baseline methodology to say, okay, we can adapt this into our process or make a new process. However, a new process will still meet the same methodology as the other one. So when we talk about forecasting and operational things, it's still the same milestones in the process that we time up with. And there might be variations in between there, but it takes a lot less reworking of the wheel every time, because what people commonly do is they say, this customer, we're going to do this special program with, and you get down this road and now they all their orders operate some certain way. This other client has this another special thing. All their whole process goes a separate way. And then another person has this another process that goes another way.
And so
that's alone
up,
a lot to
right?
It doesn't roll up.
When it's like that, it doesn't roll up.
Correct. And it's difficult to manage all that, let alone then you add in employees change. You hire more employees. Someone switches departments. Someone changes the hierarchy in the business. They have to hire someone new in. Now you have to train people on multiple different things. And if they're coming from a different department, they're going to have different habits coming in. So when you put the methodology over it, you kind of have the similar milestones, and it makes it really easy to translate and deal with the human scenarios that are coming up. A good example of this would be like if you are working with a boutique, or not a boutique, but a local distributor, right? If you're working for someone that supplies office supplies, we'll just say, we'll use this for fun example. If you're using an office supply store locally, and one of your clients is a large, or maybe 200 to 500 employee or 200,000 employee company that specializes in let's say medical devices, since they're in Minnesota, that company might send you a blanket purchase order for the whole year. And it's going to be any office supplies that their company wants, and anyone at the company can call in and reorder whatever they need. As a company, if you don't have the sales methodology, you're going to get that PO and say, "Wow, we just booked $1 million or $100,000 or $1 million in sales from this giant purchase order for the whole year." But your finance team's going to say, "Well, hold on, we don't even know what we're shipping them yet. They can take any supplies they want." And similar to operations team, and then when you're getting paid on this stuff. And so you've just taken a vastly different scenario than your normal sales process. Using a methodology, you can say, okay, well, how would we think about this in our methodology? What are our milestones to determine when something's counted in order? When are we count as a milestone to say that we should be recognizing revenue and shipping products? And so using a methodology helps you kind of set, like, we can run this separate program. However, we're still going to have these set rules for what makes things hit certain stages so that your forecasting and data of how you've performed is a similar structure.
Right. Okay. So I want to regurgitate a couple things that I heard there. The thing that came out the most was I'm a sales rep and I just landed this big order. Yay. Awesome. We're set. But that the finance people can't actually book any of that sales, right? It's just a PO. It has to be booked as you use it through the year. And so the finance reports aren't really showing. They might show $1 million in forecast, but they're not showing that on the bottom line. And so they're stressed.
Correct.
And then there's pressure on the salespeople. We've got confusion. The salesperson is saying, I don't understand. I just sold $1 million deal.
Yeah.
Why aren't you excited and ringing the bell with me? Right.
Yeah. The sales rep wants a bonus. And the accounting department's like,
I want a bonus on the $1 million
yes.
I sold, even though you haven't collected any of that money.
Correct.
You don't even know what we're selling yet. Right. So
yep.
Not having that process that handles that, what I'm hearing you saying, that creates confusion. And can I add, even there's an emotional reaction to that because we're human beings, right?
Yes.
Finance is frustrated, sales is excited, and then that they're not aligned well. Which what does that do to employees? What does that do to your team?
Well, it's fun. It's interesting because it's really the physical state of the world has not changed. A thing happened, and yet two people's interpretations of what happened are completely different, right? And yet they're working on the same team, and even their interpretations are completely opposite. So this is sort of a human problem, right? And it's troubling when you have one team that's ready to celebrate and feels like they're doing amazing, and the other team's kind of dragging them down, and it's not to say one team's worse than the other, but I think when you have bad data or things that aren't communicated or shown clearly, you see this divide happen, right? And it can be in multiple levels, right? If we take that current last example, even the sales manager, the sales rep, everyone on the revenue team is going to be happy. The accounting team and probably operations teams are going to be like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, right? There's nothing to celebrate in. And so you're going to see this frustration divide of just not feeling that they're hitting their goals, but also a growing divide in the people because they're not sharing the common experience, right? You want your team to feel like they're winning together. And if you have one team feeling like they're winning and another it's not, it's just a separation of their relationship as well. So when these problems start happening, they can start to become worse and worse over time. So it starts small. Maybe one quarter is different. And then next thing you know, it's been 2 quarters and 3 quarters and the frustrations get bigger, or small comments then start sticking, right? It's not booked yet. And those thoughts just kind of stick and they keep coming up. And next thing you know, you have a festering larger problem of people issues that you didn't have before. And really it's no person's fault because the business happened the way it was. It's just all the human interpretation of those events that happened.
Sure. So how can having visibility into your different teams, how can that solve that problem?
Yeah. So I think part of this is the right data and then the right layout of the data, right?
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think having the right data in the right structure is a big part. When you start small, it's going to be, are we taking our sales numbers and then forecasting that into an income table, right? So you're like, okay, we have, this is our sales forecast. This is our weighted margin or weighted averages. And here's kind of the time booking of when that revenue will hit. And you can match that with your invoicing schedule. So you can see, okay, we have a predictable income in the future. As you get more advanced, you'll start to say, okay, well, now maybe that revenue is booked over certain time periods. And now we have that revenue booking, but we also want to take that into a cash level forecasting as well. Okay, now we can take and do demand planning for operations to buy stuff based on this. And you start to get more advanced and work out the kind of the kinks in a natural sort of, if you were subscribed to the Kaizen practices that a lot of people do, it's just continuous improvement. If you work through that, you'll continually get cleaner, and this will get more advanced as you go. And as you get analysts on your team, you'll get a lot cleaner on how this works as well. The other part is the data visualization part of this. So each set of team is going to have a different way they want to see their information. And it makes a vastly different impact of how that data looks on the person. Accountants love Excel tables. They want to see the data. They want to drill down into it. They want to see everything underlying. Sales teams like pretty graphs with a goal line, right? They want to hit the goal. Accountants talk black and white with lots of numbers, details. It's complete overwhelm for certain people. The complication of the chart makes a big difference. So generally, I've thought about this in a pretty concise way. Generally, sales teams likes charts, and depending on the role, you show different level of details. Sales reps are going to want detail on how they are performing versus their quota goals. What do I need to do for activity to make sure that I'm following through? Sales managers want to see, how is my team doing against their goal? How in each person, probably detailed as well, or per channel, and how are we doing versus our book revenue goal? Sales is generally always focused around booked revenue, which is that goal number. Accounting and operations is more focused on the impact, the recorded revenue. So when they're looking at this data, they're trying to say, okay, when are things going to happen? What do I need to react to be able to accommodate that? They're going to be a lot more focused on table level data. So like chart, like you're thinking columns, rows, that sort of data. Sales teams are much more visual.
January, February, March, right?
Correct. Yep. They're going to have a little bit of graphs involved, but generally they want to see the full detail spectrum. And when you get into a scenario where the teams are wondering, what's underneath this? Like, I don't get it. It's really nice to just have the supporting data underneath. So having like, okay, if my chart is saying we have this much pre-booked and this much of sales is forecasting, and maybe this amount of sales just flows in and it closes within 1 to 5 days, and we just expect that to always be churning. Having some sort of explanation of how that calculation works below it makes it really easy, so that when you go to meetings, everyone has the same data set, right? Like operations has the same data, sales has the same book data in their system that's showing up on the operations book data, which is showing up the same way on the accounting's book definitions. If you have the same underlying detail, it builds a lot of trust in your entire team. As soon as those numbers get off, it turns into I'm trying to think of the right word, but it becomes sort of like a game show of who can find the mistake in the data. Everyone drops what they're doing, and everyone starts scrambling and looking for why the data's off. And so you're, 3 teams not doing productive work, trying to troubleshoot data. So when I talk about clarity, it's the way it looks and the right information matching, and that'll just keep everyone focused on just doing the work and trying to actually improve results instead of focusing on why the data is not looking right.
So I've heard 3 common themes here. We've got clarity. We've got clean data. You want alignment between all the people that's using that. And that, I feel like what you're also saying is that is laid on top of a methodology that everyone is using the same methodology. So we've got kind of 4 themes in that area
Yeah.
that I've heard from you today.
Yeah. It's a great way to describe it. I think the sales methodology that you're laying over to is a great point. I mean, one thing you'll see is companies debate on what counts things in certain stages, right? And as we talked about, it's really good to have the same data between systems and speaking the same timelines. One thing that I've seen in a lot of companies, they talk about like a verbal commitment date. So a lot of companies have to decide what determines when we're going to forecast something at a certain level or when we're going to accept that the order is won. Some companies, that's a purchase order. Sometimes it's a signed contract. Some companies allow sales reps to say they verbally told me over the phone that they wanted to do it, or they at understanding what that rule is at your company is very important to know.
Right.
Because if someone's getting a purchase order and someone's getting a verbal, yes, well, we're going to finish this next week. Those are two very different scenarios. So that methodology really helps you understand, like, what do we consider these milestones? And as you can see the trickling impact down the road. And as you add more employees, those things are super important to have dialed in.
So what are some action steps, for our audience that's listening today and they're going, oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly the challenge that we're having. What are some action steps that they can take? We'll take them one at a time. So clarity, what are some clarity action steps that you could take to, like in their business today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think going back to each person and clearly defining what their goals are and what they're responsible for. What numbers are they responsible for? And starting at the top and going down, okay, who's going to own booked revenue? Who's going to own income or recognized revenue? Who owns cash flow reporting? Those are kind of your three buckets by the three departments. You could have more if you need more. And then you can go down a tier from there, right? And say, okay, who owns what metrics in there and what would they, from there, you can say, okay, what data and charts do we need to show a person in that role? We call this like role-based dashboards. And starting to define out what would that person need to see in order to be effective at their job day to day. That's probably the best place to start on clarity. You're going to start to see, okay, some people are going to need a visual. It's going to have to be right in front of them. It's going to have to be quick bookmarked. Another person might need their data in a row format and emailed once a week. Another person might need their data shown in a waterfall chart with a table attached and underlying packets emailed every morning. Those sort of things. But as long as you have whatever they need, you need to just get really clear on what's the key metrics they need and what's that visualization look like.
Right. I think it's also always very interesting when you add in also human beings process data differently based on their personality type.
Yes.
Or the way their brain works, right? And so sometimes you might have a team of people that are using the same information, but because one person may look at a table and like their eyes scramble, right? And they really need to see it first in a different way. And I've heard you say in the past, tell me what is usable and what is hard about this so that I can help get you seeing the data in the way that you can process it as well as the way you can use it. So
yeah, it's a huge point. I mean, you look at certain people do not trust a chart. They need to see the underlying Excel data and make sure it's the right quality or it's broken down the right way that they think. Right. On the flip side, there's people who just, as soon as they see a row of numbers, their brain it zones out. They're thinking about anything but that. And not saying that either one's bad. There probably can be extremely high performers in your business, but just the way you're communicating isn't the way that makes sense. And we have this great thing with computers that we can lay information out for basically free in any way that people want to use it.
Yeah. I love looking at charts first. And then if I see something I want to dig into, I love that, our modern day CRMs like HubSpot, our charts you can click on that and say it says, you had 17 contacts. I can look at exactly which 17 contacts there were if I want to find out, what's special about these contacts so that I can serve them better. I love those features of our modern day CRMs. How about clean data? What are some action steps for clean data?
Clean data is my first thing I always say is let humans do human work and computers do computer work. So if there's anyone in your company,
tell me more about that.
Yep. Anyone in your company that's doing a data entry or import type behavior, that's generally something you should automate through a computer, right? If it's data cleaning, just refreshing records, trying to get things organized, it's generally computers can automate that stuff and keep it the way you need to be. As soon as you put humans into that data hygiene type stuff, you're likely to have errors just because humans are not perfect. Like, we're not meant to do that. We're meant to be troubleshooters and solve problems creatively and use our brains to their fullest potential. When you're asking them to make 1,000 records look similar to each other, you're sort of asking for a problem somewhere in there.
Right.
So that's generally the first place I start.
And when you talk about automating, are you assuming that their data systems are integrated? We had a whole podcast about this a couple of weeks ago, but I think what's really important there is making sure that your systems are properly integrated.
Yeah.
So that you're not, I got to enter my order over here in my CRM, but then somebody else is going to go enter it in our financial system.
Yeah.
At a different time, and they might be different people also.
Yeah. You go down this path of, I need to enter the data. And now when it changes, I need to update the data. Just think about if you have a CRM record of a company, right? They decide to change who they should contact for sending bills to, or accounting to, like, who is their main accounting contact?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've created that record in our accounting system based off the original data. Then they change that person. Well, how does the accounting team know that changed? Now you have to, this data hygiene process. So now you're doing two things of manual human entry.
Right.
Integrating systems basically eliminates that whole need to design that first, and the updates and the deletes and the account statuses back from accounting to the CRM. Integrating systems handles a lot of that. I think there's other stuff that you can do inside the system too, non-integrated. So, you go into a lot of CRMs and people's first names and last names aren't there. There's probably a way to either pull that out through other ways or use a data enrichment service to get that, so that when you talk to your customers, you can actually see their first and last name, which would be great.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at things like address validation, I think, is a really big one. If you ever want to do a mailing to your clients or customers that you've never done before, you're probably going to go through a lot of address hygiene and cleanup and need a service. You can sort of automate those things to always be clean and hygienic.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at just even account status is another good one. So like, are we currently working with you? Were we previously working with you? How many orders have you had with us? A lot of these things, when was the last order date? What was your first order? In how many orders have you had since? Are you a repeat purchaser, one-time purchaser?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can start to take your system and start to enhance what you're seeing, and that it might be done offline in a spreadsheet right now, right? You can just start to clean up, and it can help enable your team and understand who they're engaging with, and also how you're tracking towards your goals, and if we're not tracking, why is that, right? And so you can use a lot more of just your system to always keep itself clean, so that when you need to answer these questions, it's very quick and easy to see.
Yeah. I'm going to share with you my personal pet peeve on, disparate systems. It is so frustrating to me when a salesperson is going to call up a customer. Maybe it's just to check in. How's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. And what they don't know is they have a frustrated customer that's got a support ticket somewhere and is having a problem somewhere, and the salesperson doesn't know about it. And so they may or may not be walking into, a beehive of emotions, when if your customer service is connected to your sales, and you don't have to have all the details, right? Just simply knowing, hey, we've got a ticket out there, then you can check in with that person that owns the ticket. Hey, what's the status here? That actually gives a salesperson a reason to make a call rather than just saying, hey, how's it going, right? I wanted to follow up with you. Are you getting what you need out of the support team, right? Then they feel like they're getting this big warm hug from all sides of the business.
Yeah.
And those are such frustrating problems that can be fixed so easily.
Yeah. And you can see that in other spots too, where people send surveys to ask, how was your product experience before the products arrived at your house?
Right.
And
love
shipping.
that. Yes.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I can't even give you a review. So now it's lost in my email because I couldn't even, it's not at the top of my inbox anymore when I got it, and the timing's off. So even just having that information in your system, right? Like clear data, like And that's an extra step too, because you need to make sure that you're in this scenario, you need to have your shipping data and tracking them integrated, but you also need a package status integrated to your system in order to trigger like the right steps, which
or
is
marketing emails that go to somebody that's already bought that product.
Yes.
Because their marketing list is not updated by order lists, so that you're not getting, hey, buy this product that you only have 12 hours left to buy the product. And I bought it 3 days ago. And that just, I mean, it's no big deal, right? It's an extra email. But the other side of that is it doesn't give that warm, fuzzy feeling that this business knows what they're doing, right? They're working in a functionally efficient way that makes me want to do business with them more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so we said clarity, clean data. What about alignment? You started off with, talk to your people. How do they see the data? How do we make sure, what are some action steps that we can do today to align people that are viewing data in different ways?
So a big part of this is goal setting and holding people to the right goals. So as we talked about, knowing the numbers for each department of who's going to own what number, having the right goal for those people, and then understanding your other teammates' goals is also important. So I talk about horizontal accountability a lot. So instead of having managers always say, team, do this because I'm setting the rules, it's, does someone downline need the information correct to do their job correct? And it creates really good team accountability, right? Like if your customer service person is always going to your salesperson and asking them, hey, he keeps asking the same question to the salesperson, like, can you explain why this is happening? Can you explain why this? It's going to hold the salesperson more accountable to just fill that information right in the system so you can see it right. Similar to like if they're going to the operations team a lot, your customer service person might be saying, can I get a status of this? Returns are a great example. If a customer needs to return something because product was not right or it's the wrong size or whatever, how are you tracking those things coming back? And when you're handling credits back to them, and what's the triggering criteria? Just holding your customer's hand through that is important because they feel that they need help. They've spent money. They didn't get what they want. They kind of want to be handheld through fixing that scenario. So handling that process is super important. Like, are you getting the return on time? Are you getting notifications when the product arrives for shipping your replacement? How are you getting notified of that happening? And when is that happening? That consistent follow-up, your customer service reps are going to be very persistent finding out the answers to these. And that creates a great horizontal accountability for just other teams to be really organized in the way that they operate. So we talked about alignment. This horizontal accountability of, I need your information to be correct so I can do my job, is a really powerful tool to have in your business. And I say that you should hold each other accountable, but not be fully dependent as well, right? Like if I can't take any steps in my process and I don't know anything that's going on, that's more of a red flag where probably a manager needs to step in and say something's bigger is going on here. But if they just need a little bit of clarification on something, it's a really nice, effective tool to keep your teams aligned and to a standard that makes everyone work efficiently.
I can see how that would have a really great impact. If you're doing those things, can you give us a picture of what it looks like for a team that has that horizontal accountability? They have clarity. They have clean data. They have alignment. They're using a methodology that acts as a framework for the actions that they take and the data that they collect. What does that look like?
Less pretty than you would think, but in a very good way. When a team is aligned and working well, you're still going to have problems, but the problems are going to be able to be solved with the team members there that are responsible for their job. If the sales team needs a quote from the person who's in charge of quoting or doing price estimates and they're behind schedule, it should be very clear in the system that there are things behind schedule, right? And it's not a pointing fingers type scenario. It's, hey, you have 13 things that are overdue. Why is that going on?
What can I do to help?
What can I do to help? I need some help from you. Instead of just going to them and saying, hey, where's my thing? And they can't even explain to you how many things are on their plate. You can say, oh, there's 13 things on their plate. And one thing's held it up or something came up or someone's out of town, right? And you have a team health around it because you can see what's going on in their world and they can see what's going on with your world. And there's a lot of mutual respect for everything that everyone's working on.
I love that. Healthy and respectful.
Yeah. It's
like
not going to be perfect.
A lot of emotion out of it so that when we're not so emotionally tied up, we're thinking with our brains a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we're having productive, respectful conversations instead of emotionally toxic ones, which
absolutely.
When the other side of that, the impact of not having it is the exact opposite of that, right?
Yeah.
Chaos, confusion, employee turnover, all of those things, are the opposite side of that.
Yeah. And if you can see this, right, and you can see what other people are working on and what they're going through and what they're experiencing, it creates a lot of empathy, right? Your team, it feels like a team. You're understanding like these are their challenges and wow, look how great my team is. I'm going to go tell other people about how great this team's doing, right? And they're sharing the stories about how great this team's doing when they're doing great. So having that clarity and understanding it, you don't always have to show that to everyone, but when something comes up or it just glance at it, creates a really good camaraderie. So.
Right. I think that's interesting. Sales visibility creates clarity, camaraderie, and empathy.
Yeah.
And those are foundations that you can scale your business on.
Yeah. Imagine the other way around too. If your sales team saw that the customer service team responded to people on an average of within 3 minutes, or I don't know, let's say 10 minutes. You could set the goal whatever you want, right?
Right.
But if they saw the whole customer service team was on average getting back to things within 9 minutes and no ticket ever sat for more than 12 hours, how excited will your sales team be to go tell everyone how great your customer service is, right?
Right. It sells itself.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Aaron, if people want to hear more of your genius, where can they find you?
LinkedIn's probably the best place.
Yeah.
I try to like and comment and share stuff when I find it interesting. So it's probably the best place.
All right. Thanks so much for being here. This is fantastic conversation that I know our audience is really going to benefit from. So thanks so much. And I can't wait to have you back.
Awesome. Thanks, Tiff.
Thank you for checking out this episode of RevOps Champions. This show is powered by Denamico, a HubSpot consulting firm, helping businesses level up the technology systems that power their ability to scale. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow RevOps Champions wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or visit RevOpsChampions.com to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.